For nearly 80 years, George Burns was one of America's most beloved comedians. By the time he died, he had built a fortune of over $30 million. His 2 adopted children believed they would inherit it. In 1996, Burns shocked everyone by cutting them out of his will completely, leaving his money elsewhere and his family with unanswered questions. George Burns was born Nathan Birnbaum on January 20th, 1896, in New York's Lower East Side. He grew up poor in a crowded apartment with 11 siblings. Food was scarce, clothes were shared, but laughter filled the rooms. That humor would define his life. Everything changed when his father died suddenly in 1904. At 8 years old, George left school to work, shining shoes and singing for spare change. Some nights he slept in alleyways, learning hunger, fear, and survival early. He drifted through odd jobs, sneaked into burlesque theaters, and dreamed of performing. As a teenager, he nearly drowned swimming the East River, a moment that deepened his hunger to escape poverty. He began using stage names and ran away to join traveling shows. His early career was brutal. He was booed off stages, fired repeatedly, and often broke. He sang anywhere he could, street corners, ferries, even brothels, refusing to quit despite constant failure. During World War I, rejected by the Navy, he disguised himself as a woman to perform for soldiers aboard troop ships. Reinvention kept him alive. Partnerships came and went, often ending with betrayal or abandonment, leaving him broke again. By the early 1920s, Burns worked alone in speakeasies, dodging police raids and hiding in coal bins to avoid arrest. He realized he needed a partner to truly succeed. That partner arrived in 1923 when he met Gracie Allen. Their chemistry was instant, though unexpected. Gracie's innocent, offbeat style captivated audiences, and George reshaped the act to let her shine. Together, they became a sensation on the vaudeville circuit. As success grew, George feared losing her. On Christmas Eve 1925, he gave Gracie an ultimatum: marry him or walk away. She chose him. They married in January 1926, forming one of comedy's most iconic partnerships, and setting the foundation for the fortune that would later divide his family. Their wedding was small, but it fused their lives and careers forever. Weeks later, George and Gracie signed a 6-year RKO contract that forbade solo work, locking them into a partnership that would last decades. Success came with hidden costs. Gracie began fainting during rehearsals, later diagnosed as a lifelong heart condition. George was stunned that someone so vibrant could be so fragile. Still, Gracie kept performing, pushing through pain for years until her health finally forced her retirement in 1958 and led to her death in 1964. In 1927, they reached the peak of vaudeville by headlining New York's Palace Theater, earning $1,150 a week. Critics compared them to the Marx Brothers, and audiences adored Gracie's illogical brilliance. Though it looked like overnight success, it was built on years of failure, adjustment, and realizing Gracie was the true spark. By 1929, they toured England on a 15-week BBC radio run. When British customs confiscated George's cigars, he turned his nicotine withdrawal into comedy. The audience loved it. The tour made them international stars and proved their humor could cross cultures. They soon joined the Ziegfeld Follies, sharing stages with legends like Eddie Cantor. Behind the scenes, travel exhausted Gracie, yet she performed through injuries, including once acting through a twisted ankle while George physically supported her on stage. While others spent freely, George wisely invested in foreclosed real estate during the 1929 crash, securing their finances through the Depression. Their 1930 film debut nearly ended in disaster when a projector exploded and burned George's eyebrows, but he turned it into a joke, impressing executives. Their real breakthrough came in 1932 with The George Burns and Gracie Allen Show on NBC, reaching 40 million listeners by the mid-1930s with improvisation and Gracie's hilarious misunderstandings. In 1933, Gracie's fake presidential campaign, The Surprise Party, boosted ratings by 40% and even drew real votes. Behind the scenes, George wrote most of the material but credited Gracie, and when a joke suggested marital trouble, public outrage only made the show more popular. They moved to CBS for $10,000 a week, weaving real life into comedy, including Gracie's appendectomy. By 1938, they bought a Beverly Hills mansion, later nearly destroyed by a fire caused by George's cigar, another disaster they turned into comedy. Hollywood brought more close calls. Gracie fell from a chandelier during filming and George caught her, breaking ribs. Another time, Fred Astaire turned her forgotten dance steps into a legendary improvisation. During World War II, they entertained troops, lifting morale nationwide. Gracie even sparked a scandal by smuggling silk stockings for soldiers, nearly facing punishment before George intervened. The troops adored her even more. By 1945, George and Gracie were at the peak of their fame. Two girls and a sailor earned over $4 million, but Gracie's health was declining. Migraines forced her to take a 6-month break, during which George began drafting his autobiography, later published as Gracie, capturing the heart of their partnership. In 1950, The George Burns and Gracie Allen Show debuted on CBS, a pioneering sitcom with George speaking directly to the audience. It ran for 291 episodes until 1958, paying nearly $200,000 per season, and set the blueprint for family sitcoms. Accidents like a prop cake explosion became part of the charm, while George navigated personal guilt privately, once atoning for a one-night affair with gifts to Gracie. Gracie's undiagnosed heart condition worsened, forcing her retirement in 1958 and her death in 1964. George honored her memory with an empty chair on stage, speaking to her as if she were still there. Without her, his next TV show, Wendy and Me, flopped, and he struggled with alcohol and smoking until a collapse in Las Vegas forced him to quit entirely. George rebuilt his career with solo performances and memoirs, including I Love Her, That's Why, which sold over 100,000 copies. At age 80, he achieved a late-life triumph, winning the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor in The Sunshine Boys. He followed with hits like Oh God, where his signature cigars and sharp humor defined his enduring image. Even into his late 80s and 90s, he performed sold-out shows in Las Vegas, survived major surgery, and adapted performances to his health, always keeping humor at the center. In his final years, he continued making people laugh from his hospital bed and celebrated small private milestones, including his 100th birthday. George Burns died at home on March 9, 1996, less than 3 months after turning 100. He left his estate, worth millions, to charity, cutting his children out of the will. His legacy lives on in modern comedy. Jerry Seinfeld credits Burns' timing and style as a major influence, and his combination of wit, charm, and resilience continues to inspire generations. If you enjoy classic Hollywood stories, timeless glamour, and legendary stars, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Share your favorite old Hollywood icon in the comments, or tell us who you'd love to see featured next. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new deep dive into Hollywood's golden age.